Joining us now, look who's here. Senator Mike Braun from Senate Budget. Senator, it's always a pleasure having you on. How can the White House take a victory lap on an 11% rise in grocery inflation? I mean, Biden is seeing a shakeup in his team as inflation continues to hammer U.S. consumers, and he's gaslighting them again on it.
Liz, I've been here 4 years, and they're just good at taking something and trying to flip the script completely. Last time we had inflation like this, by the way, 81 to 86, took 5 years to wring that nasty out of our economy. It really galled me when they were bragging about things like bringing down deficits in record fashion. Well, they created deficits in record fashion through the enterprising that they did, replacing the productive economy with more federal government. And inflation, we don't know how long that's going to take. Not to mention things like where is the current work ethic. I know the labor participation rate is under what it was pre-COVID when we had no inflation. Wages were going up in the toughest spots, and it was a real economy, not one where we've replaced a good part of our GDP with more government, by the way, borrowing almost every penny of it.
Yeah, it's an important point you make. I mean, you know, we've seen time and again this White House declare victory when it's not. I mean, the polls show that as more Americans feel they're worse off versus last year or 2 years ago, it's right in line with what you say about inflation. I mean, inflation is up about 14% under this president since he took office. People are really upset. Senator, we'd like your reaction to this. Watch this.
Numbers came out today that show a monthly decline in real wages as well as an annual decline in real wages. How do you view the setback in today's numbers?
The president's economic plan is indeed working.
This report suggests that we have an economy that is resilient, an economy where we see inflation continuing to ease, with a labor market that remains robust.
I was really shocked at sparkling water prices today, the fact that they've gone up substantially. So proteins and other sorts of grocery items are definitely of concern.
One thing that President Biden doesn't talk about is the 13% increase in inflation since he's taken over. He continues to tout about the great job report. But what he's not talking about is that many of these people who are added into these jobs reports are people who are now having to look for the second and third and fourth job to be able to sustain the gas prices, the inflation, the cost of living increases, as well as for the cost of our groceries.
What do you think, Senator?
So pre-COVID, we had none of that. And all economists know that wages cannot go up like they do in the real world when you've not thrown this fiscal dump into the economy. And part of getting inflation down is bringing wages down, which is exactly opposite of what they brag about doing. So even their economists cite that. So much of what they're trying to sell us is trying to paint a sugar-high economy based upon shutting our economy down way too long beyond what was necessary, substituting more government for private enterprise, and it's a mess. They created it, and they need to own it, and we need to call them out on it.
And the other thing, too, Senator, the Biden White House again tries to artificially lower gas prices. It drained another 26 million barrels out of the strategic reserves, taking that to a new historic 40-year low, right as the White House and the president undercuts U.S. oil and gas. China knows this is weak. Our national security is being diminished to prop up a failed Biden energy policy. The well will run dry in those strategic reserves, and then what? Buy it back at a massive loss to the taxpayers while asking dictators overseas to pump more?
We had filled up that strategic reserve with the energy policies that were in place that they immediately derailed. I don't care what your long-term plan might be. None of it is really affordable that they propose. Why would you shoot yourself in the foot in the short run, have to beg the Saudis to produce more, go to places in South America when we had energy independence? And plus, I think China ended up with some of that strategic reserve. Ted Cruz and I have a bill out there that will put an end to that in the future.
So when have you ever seen a president attack U.S. jobs like that? I mean, who do they think they are? And then they're telling oil and gas workers to go code? We're talking millions of jobs and halo effect jobs from the oil and gas sector.
Liz, the easiest way to understand it, I come from Main Street, from the world of running a business, being an entrepreneur. They want to replace a lot of that with more bureaucracy, more regulation, and more done through the government. They really don't fully appreciate how the private side of the economy works and that it pays the bills for all this nonsense here in D.C. Money given to us, we still can't figure out how to spend less than we take in, sporting $1.5 trillion deficits now annually.
You know, Democrats, to your point, they use the pandemic, they shut down the economy, then they use the pandemic to dramatically expand government dependency.
Yep.
Medicaid enrollment exploded by more than 20 million. It's an almost 29% increase. They're talking about getting food via Medicaid now. Massive government handouts that made staying at home and not working more profitable in a majority of states. Then, you know, that's what's going on. That's flatlined the recovery. Biden is overseeing 2.1% GDP growth. He inherited about 5.96% growth. It's historically been 3 to 4% growth since World War II. This might be one of the most incompetent White Houses and administrations we ever seen.
And all with loaded up debt, 18 trillion when I got here 4 years ago, now 31, and an economy that's based more on government than it is the productive side. That's a bill of goods. We need to call them out on it.
All right. Senator Mike Braun, thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to see you.
My pleasure.